definitely let all your elected officials know what's up. So, Dave, you were saying Project CBD has that great article?
Well, yeah. So this article came out this week from Project CBD, and it is referencing and destroying the article that came out in June of this year, and we basically skimmed by it when it initially came out because it's almost guaranteed that whenever it's like the psychosis study has been completely debunked. And when a study comes out and somebody writes about it in this way, it's not long before somebody like Project CBD will tear it apart. And boy, do they tear this study apart. It is garbage. This is the most garbage science I've ever read. And we're talking about the study that is referenced in this article in Forbes, written by Mike Adams, who is generally, as from my memory, is a really good contributor for the cannabis space over at Forbes. And he writes the Vices column, which is one thing. But this really, it's called Marijuana Study Finds CBD Can Cause Liver Damage. And boy, oh boy, have the propagandist grabbed onto that article. And which is really strange.
For 4.5 mice.
Yeah, because we have a FDA-approved drug from the plant called, Epidiolex. Basically, it's CBD with garbage in it. That's approved by the FDA, and then now they're saying, well, wait, this stuff can cause you liver damage. Now, so let's get into this a little bit. Let's get into this story.
Yeah, so you can talk to your friends about it because surely they've only heard the shitty propaganda story and not the debunking of it.
So I'm just going to read a little bit from this article from Project CBD.
No relationship to Ugly Adams, would like to be clear.
Oh, to be clear. No, thank you. Thank you, Ugly Adams. I thought, well, maybe, okay. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you for clarifying that. So, a recent article by Mike Adams in Forbes Online rang alarm bells by asserting that CBD, quote, could be damaging our livers in the same way as alcohol and other drugs. This sensational claim was based on a dubious study of CBD and liver toxicity conducted by researchers, Ewing et al., at the University of Arkansas in Little Rock. Except the damage discussed in the study was unrelated to alcohol toxicity and, quote, our livers, unquote. Actually refers to mouse livers. The subtitle of this article, by the way, is CBD toxic to the liver, is, and did Cannabidiol really kill 4.5 mice? What does that mean exactly? Well, let's take a look and see what it does mean.
Is it a new rat poison that's not toxic?
Listen, this
that actually might be awesome.
I think they might be able to patent this as it's a very
rat poison.
This is a great way to use all that crappy CBD isolate that they're going to make from yeast.
Right.
This would be great if you can make a bunch of crappy CBD isolate from yeast. This would be a great way to kill mice.
Yeah.
So here's this subheading: mega dosing mice. The breathless reporting in Forbes focuses on a single, flawed preclinical study and exaggerates it to the point of falsehood. Yet, if there's a saving grace in the Forbes article, Mike Adams gets a little bit back here, it's that it gets much less wrong than the study itself. The study is freely available to read from Molecules, a journal published by the Multidisciplinary Digital Publishing Institute, which apparently has its own problems. That's my addition, sorry. A close examination of the molecule study reveals a Pandora's box of strange statements, problematic publishing, and unreasonable experimental design. On the first page of the abstract, the abstract makes a claim that is fundamentally impossible, starting that with chronic administration of CBD, quote, 75% of the mice gavaged with 615 milligrams per kilogram. Let me say that again. 615 milligrams per kilo. 75% of the mice gavaged Gavage, that's an interesting word, with 615 milligrams per kilo, developed a moribund condition. But there were only 6 animals that received this dose. One doesn't need an advanced degree in science or math to recognize that something is amiss. 75% of 6 equals 4.5. So according to the Little Rock researchers, 4.5 mice died because of the dangerous drug known as CBD, while somehow 1.5 mice survived. Reading on, it only gets worse. The experiment setup is succinct. Scientists force-fed mice a single dose of CBD ranging from the supposedly low dose of 246 milligrams per kilo up to a mega dose of 2,460 milligrams per kilogram of CBD.
That's a lot, dude.
That means for every kilogram of body weight, they gave the mice about 2.5 grams of CBD.
That's a lot.
Which has been formulated as a hexene extract.
Hexene, that's what it is.
From cannabis supplied by the NIDA, National Institute of Drug Abuse. And hexene, it bears mentioning, is a neurotoxin. So they get their crappy Mississippi weed. They pull the CBD out of it with hexene. And then they force a high dose of 2.5 grams per kilo into a mouse.
Yeah. Insane.
Okay, so the maximum, still from the article here, continuing. This just blows my mind. The maximum dosage recommended for the CBD isolate Epidiolex, which is the FDA-approved drug, is 20 milligrams per kilo, which is over 100 times less than what the Little Rock researchers force-fed their experimental mice. They also tried smaller doses, ranging between 61 to 615 milligrams of CBD, which was given daily for 10 consecutive days. Despite these ridiculous dosages, Ewing et al. Claimed their study accurately represents human experience, insisting that the equivalent dose of 12.3 times lower, because allometric scaling, which will be discussed momentarily, this is at best an unverified assumption. More likely, it's just plain wrong. And boy, does this get worse. This this review, a peer-reviewed study, it continues to get worse. And it actually gets into some of they tried to do harm to these animals, which is the sort of modus operandi of the federal government and how they try to prove cannabis is bad. That's correct. They reference this rhesus monkey study, which also used rats, by the way. And I'm gonna find this part of it because this part is really, really fascinating. And it talks about allometric scaling a little bit. And my sister, nurse, who might be watching this right now, knows what may know what we're talking about with allometric. I never knew what it was, but it's basically trying to figure out a way to scale up to humans from an animal model in dosage and testing its effects, which is apparently useless with cannabinoids based on all of these studies that they've used to try to prove harm. And what they're talking about, and what Laura that mentioned in the chat. New data, same old story. This is still from the article over at Project CBD, jumping down. Quote, regardless of your feelings on this particular study, it is hard to argue with dead mice, unquote. The Forbes article blithely asserts. Nonsense. Not enough attention is paid to the last word. Mice. Even if we suspend our disbelief and look past every problem described thus far, a dead mouse, or half a mouse, isn't proof of what happens to a human. Now, the search for a lethal dose of cannabinoids is nothing new. One of the earliest efforts to kill an animal with a gigantic dose of THC was described in a 1972 paper by scientists at the Mason Research Institute in Worcester, Massachusetts. In their quest to prove the dangers of THC, they attempt to kill almost 400 rats, a couple of dozen beagle dogs, and some rhesus monkeys. The rat dosage ranged from 225 to 3,600 milligrams per kilogram of orally administered THC, a higher amount than the CBD dosage used in the Little Rock experiment. It turned out that rats could be killed by THC, though it took roughly 1,000 milligrams per kilogram. Interpreting this with allometric scaling, we would expect that monkeys would have had a lethally toxic response to 500 milligrams per kilo of THC. This translates to about 10 grams of pure THC for a human. That, by the way, is a large amount of THC. Pure THC. 10 grams of pure THC. That's a lot of THC oil. But it's wrong. The researchers weren't able to overdose the monkeys. This is the part I didn't really know. I knew about the smoking part, the gas masks. The researchers weren't able to overdose the monkeys, not with an allometric scaled dose, nor when they tried a much higher dose of 9,000 milligrams, or just under 1% of the monkey's body weight. In a typical 65-kilo human, 1% of the body weight would amount to 585 grams of THC. That's over a pound of pure THC. And that concentration wasn't enough for a lethal outcome. The dose used in monkeys is one most likely to translate to humans. And it underscores, if anything, the importance of not extrapolating from one species to another. And the article gets into what allometric scaling is, and it shows about species and how they do it. But that test basically shows that if you look at it versus a primate, that's us, primates with nuclear weapons, and a rat, you're obviously getting different results. I didn't realize they actually were able to kill rats with THC in that study. 1,000 milligrams per kilogram of weight. So, but they couldn't kill a monkey. They couldn't kill a monkey. And they were sure mean. They were able to kill brain cells with their smoking version of their thing, but that's because they replaced oxygen with cannabis smoke. So that was really why they killed, right? Holy cannabis oil was blown away by this, right? It's just an insane amount of 9,000 milligrams per kilogram of THC into those monkeys. Boy, they must have been having a paranoid time. Because they didn't kill them, but they probably wanted to die. That much THC would be a very uncomfortable dose in a human being. I'd have to say. I mean, 6-gram dabs on YouTube aside, to consume, and then they went on. They actually went on to. I think he talks about another study with. Oh, that's what it was. And they did another study. They put out another study the next week. These same yahoos put out another study comparing the liver damage that CBD does to Tylenol. And that study is equally as ridiculous as this one. Their way they did it, the amounts they're using, the way they gave CBD orally, and then they gave Tylenol intravenously. And they killed him. They killed the rat. They killed him. Using CBD orally and injecting them with a huge amount of Tylenol. They killed it. Yeah, I mean, how are you going to get them to consume 1,000 or however many milligrams of Tylenol? Yeah, a dingo ate my baby. Welcome, brother. I could think of worse ways to die. Yeah, that would be an interesting. I guess that would be an interesting experiment. I mean, I certainly wouldn't. That's what that found. Actually, it was a study. Let me see if I can find it. The study they did with Tylenol was to prove it wasn't liver problems. It was to prove that acetaminophen and CBD together can potentially cause a problem for heart problems. So, the absurdity of all of this. You're off mic, someone says. So just be aware. Okay, so CBD and acetaminophen. Okay, so this is my nurse and doctor friends out there. Can we call this article one bad study and move on? Well, no, because Molecules has already published another similar article, the same journal and the same irrelevance, with a few more authors and a few more unbelievable claims. The most recent study, published in Molecules a month after the first liver toxicity article, doesn't improve on much. In their second report, they assess a potential interaction between CBD and acetaminophen, sold as Tylenol, in female mice. Similar to the first study, they use hexene, a neurotoxin, to extract cannabinoids for NIDA-supplied cannabis, which apparently we're going to get more of for research, which I guess is a good thing. The amount of residual solvent listed as less than 0.5 or 5,000 UGs per gram. Such a product, holy cannabis oil, they could tell us this, would not be legal to sell in California's regulated marijuana market, which has set a limit of 290 UGs per gram of hexene in cannabis extracts. The authors did not immediately reply for a request or clarification, I'm sure. And the doses of CBD employed in the second Little Rock study are quite a bit lower than the first, since acetaminophen stresses the liver significantly on its own. A new oddity is the choice of administration. The researchers set up a feeding tube to administer high doses of CBD. They must like it. I wonder what else they put in it. But instead, decided to inject 400 milligrams of acetaminophen into the mice. The authors do not state how this dosage would be algorithmically scaled to a human taking Tylenol. 3 of the 8 mice treated with acetaminophen and the supposedly low dose of CBD, 116 milligrams per kilogram, died within a few hours. Curiously, this is the best part. Curiously, none of the mice that were force-fed a higher dose of CBD died. The Little Rock researchers explain this peculiar outcome by invoking the biphasic effect, also known as hormesis, or a U-shaped dose response curve, which refers to the existence of a sweet spot for optimal dosing. Outside a particular dosage range, too high or too low, cannabinoids can lose their efficacy and even cause the opposite of an expected effect. Blah, blah, blah.
That's really important.
That is very important, and it's very true, which we just learned this weekend at that talk with Dr. Hergenrather, who clarified for me in my brain about that and made it very clear that when you isolate these molecules, including CBD and THC, they create a biphasic effect where you have to find a sweet spot. It's more so with CBD, I think. But you have to find a sweet spot that's high enough to work, but not too high enough. It's either too low and it doesn't work, or it's too high and it doesn't work, and it takes much trial and error depending on what you've got, what you need it for, how fast you need it, to figure out where that sweet spot is, and then that can change. And isolates produce that effect, whereas full flower spectrum distillates don't. So if you've got all those other cannabinoids in there, the entourage effect is what it's called, studied by Israel. The entourage effect is what it's called, and that does not happen. The biphasic effect is a side effect of isolates. It's not a side effect of full spectrum plant medicine. So I found that very fascinating. That's Dr. Hergenrather saying that, and we'll maybe get him on camera at some point because we weren't recording that. But there was someone there recording that, so that may be up somewhere, and we'll find out where it was, and we'll get a link to that. But we were really fortunate to get that. And now here in this study, they're trying to use this biphasic effect to argue that CBD, that's why it's not killing these rats. Because it actually, when you find the right dose, it doesn't kill you, and it protects you. Now, I'm pretty sure this was not liver. This had to do with cardiac. And that basically I think he says they even say, or maybe in the article they extrapolate that it basically proves that, I know what it was. I know what it is. I'll find the part. They cited studies saying that CBD was bad for cardiac problems. The problem is they cited like 7 studies, and in this latest article, and 6 of them were rat studies, because they were saying that CBD and Tylenol, it's bad for humans, heart problems. So all of them except one of these studies that they are citing in this were rat models, not human models. And the one that was a human study didn't hurt the humans, didn't kill them, or didn't hurt the humans at all. They didn't see an effect, a bad effect. In fact, they saw a positive effect, and that trial actually showed that CBD was good for heart problems. Could be used. That was actually the result of their study, was that CBD should be looked at for heart problems. Yet that was the only human study they cite claiming that CBD is bad for the heart in rats. So there you go. We have a business opportunity to grow crappy isolate CBD from some source and create a rat poison.
Yeah. But they have to eat it.
Harmless to humans and other animal rat poison.
Yeah.
I think it's a genius. It's a genius idea. Thank you, molecules.
Combine it with acetaminophen.
And combine with their headache will go away, and then their hearts will explode.
Yeah.
So that'll be good in the rats, but it won't. It'll actually and if humans actually eat it, it won't be a problem.
No.
I think
They shouldn't eat it. Not for human consumption. No isolate.
I think we are onto something.
You're right, actually.
It changed. Holy Cannabis Oil says it changes how they are metabolized in the liver.
Right. CBD.
Yes. Digitalis, a heart medicine, is foxglove, a wildflower. That's right. Listen, most of the opioids came from a plant.
Yes.
But now they isolated the drug. People smoked opium for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
The plant protects.
Balance. The plant protects. That's right. And it's unfortunate. We were talking about it yesterday. Folks on like trying to get a liver on a transplant list. They're busted with THC in their system. They're done. They're off. Meanwhile, THC actually protects the liver and helps stimulate benefits to the liver.
Sumer BC
rejection.
says, give a rat 100 cups of coffee a day and it'll kill him.
And it'll kill him.
Maybe we should add caffeine to our rat poison. And then caffeine, acetaminophen, and CBD made from yeast.
They'll run around like crazy, have a heart attack, and it'll be great.
Yeah.
I think
it's true. Cannabis sativa, when humans F with natural forms of things, it always goes badly. It's true.